A journey with intention and never fail to mention that we go hard every time we go in. Everything I'm feeling must be something I've been missing. However, all the
Welcome to part one of the Book Babe Summer Special on poetry. For the next two episodes, we will be discussing poems from two very different authors. But before we begin, I'll have the ladies introduce themselves. I'm Danica.
Hey y'all, I'm Bridget.
Hi, I'm Takesha.
And I'm Erin.
So for part one, we will be discussing Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur.
Milk and honey are not your ordinary mixes, but they're the perfect combination when put together by Rupi Kaur. She is an Indian-born Canadian writer, poet, illustrator, and performer. She's new to the scene, but she's already been making a splash. She debuted her first book in 2014, which was at the top of the New York Times best-selling list for over a year. She sold 2.5 million copies worldwide, and it's even been printed in 30 different languages. You wanna know why? Because she is the bearer of her soul on paper. She touches on so many untold stories, from the journey to love, straight through the pain that comes from heartbreak. She wants women to know that they are not alone, and she connects with her audience on so many different emotional levels. She's truly revolutionary. She wants women to start stepping into their femininity and strength and end the acceptance of trauma as a norm in our lives. She's amazing.
Yes, she is. Yes, indeed. Well, thank you, Takesha. That was great. So, Rupi Kaur is very open, honest, and fearless about her experiences. She's very transparent about the trials and errors that happen in her life. And so the book is divided into 4 different sections, and each section serves a different purpose. So I kind of want to go through each section and share our thoughts and ideas on each one. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay. So the first one is called The Hurting, and here she talks about rape, abuse, the relationship between father and daughter, and she states that, your father, he's supposed to be the first male love of your life, yet you still search for him everywhere. And what came to mind for me was the absentee father and how it has an effect on women in different ways. For instance, they may go searching for love in all the wrong places just because they never received that type of love growing up from a father. So what do you ladies think about that?
I definitely agree. I know quite a few women who have absentee fathers in their lives, and they do say that it has an effect on the men that they choose to date, or the negative men that they choose to date, or positive. So I can definitely agree with that.
So for me, I just think about my father was in and out of my life, and so I would never ever search for a man like him. Just anything that reminds me of him, I'm just I don't want that in my life, and that's how it kind of affected me. So I kind of search for the opposite, but I don't feel like I search for love in men, because I do think that my father loves me, so I don't search for that type of love, but I just know that I don't want anyone like him.
I would say for me that I've had my father in my life my entire life. I love my father to death. Everybody knows that. Even with me having him in my life, I don't think that I look for men who are similar or like my father. It's just not a thing. There are some qualities he has that are great, but there are some qualities that I'm just nah, just not happening in my life. But I will say, for the women that I know who have not had their fathers in their lives at all, a lot of them wind up being in these really bad, sometimes abusive relationships. So I do really agree with the statement that sometimes your father's love does impact you, but I think it could be for the good or for the bad. I really think it depends on the woman and her different experiences as well.
One thing that it made me think about, because I was a little confused about whether or not her father was present in the house or if he wasn't there at all, because I think sometimes you can have an absentee father who is present in the home, but he is not being a father. And I think that also impacts women in a really different way, because then they think that that type of love that they've seen is okay, and they settle, or they're willing to stay in that type of situation. So I think that having an absentee father who's also present can also be dangerous for women.
Yeah, I have a friend who says that her parents been married for a really long time, and her dad has always been in the house but hasn't done anything. Right. And so it's he's not even there. Yeah. And
just pays the bills.
if that, you know. He could literally just be a body in the house. And so, yeah, I would agree with Erin.
Yeah, I actually agree with that too. And that's an angle that I wasn't even really thinking about, because it's true. You could literally have a father in your household and you won't even, like, that's the type of love and standard. And then also, what if your parents are not truly in love? Like, does that teach you the right way to love someone? Like, that's a whole nother angle of, like, going into the hurting, because if you see your mom hurting every day, not having the love that she feels like she deserves, you may think that that's a norm. Right. And you may accept that as a norm for yourself, and then you'll be eternally hurting because you always accept that type of person. So it's just another angle.
Yeah, so on the topic of love, in the second section of the book, called The Loving, she talks about the love a mother has for a child, or the love that you might have for another individual. What do you guys think about this topic?
So she talks about a love between a mother and a child, which is a love that I have not experienced yet, but it's a love that I've heard very much about. People have told me that you've never experienced the type of love that you have when you have a child. And Rupi actually says, I struggle so deeply to understand how someone can pour their entire soul and energy into someone without expecting anything in return. And that really stood out to me, because I'm like, wow, that is a lot of love. To not expect anything back and to just put it into someone, that's a lot of love that I haven't experienced, and I'm not sure if I want to experience.
So I go back and forth on, like, if I want to have children, if I don't want to have children, just because, like you said, that love, you have to give up yourself. I think so. Like, once you have a kid, your kid is your number one priority. And, you know, you have to take a step back, and you can't be selfish anymore. And I feel like I'm still in the selfish stage, and I don't know if that's something that I don't know if I want to give that up. Because I don't know if I have that much love to give to someone else. Like, I want all my love for me, you know? And so it's true, because it is a sacrifice when you have children. No matter, I don't care how much money you have, like, you sacrifice when you have kids.
If you do it the right way.
If you do it the right way. Yeah, well, that's all. I just thought about a whole, here you go. If you do it the right way.
My thing is, it's controversial as it may be, I don't necessarily feel like you have to completely give every single part of you to your child. I think that there is this stereotype specifically for women that we have to give up everything in our lives just to be mothers. And I'm not with that. I'm not going to lie to you. I want to be able to be a great mom to my children, right? But I also want to be a great person to myself. Like, I feel like as I age, like, I start to appreciate more qualities about myself that I don't frankly want to lose. And not to say that there's not sacrifices that I'm willing to give up for my children. It just ain't going to be everything. I'm definitely not giving, like, my whole soul. And I mean, I'm also speaking from the perspective of not having a child right now. I am. Yeah, y'all shady. I seen it in y'all eyes. I see everybody like, okay, my neck moves too. But I don't think that I need to give up every single thing. I do think that a lot more millennial moms are finding a balance between still having their own lives, making sure that they have present fathers so that they don't have to give up everything, and also making sure that they're happy as well, and still maintaining their household and their children, which I don't think there's anything wrong with. So I'm not giving up everything. I'm just being honest.
Just really quick. So I have a couple of friends who are parents already, and so you say all of that now, but they tell me once the kids come, that's it. Like, all of that goes out the window. I'm just speaking from, like, what I've been told by people who are already parents.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
so it's like you're like in a bubble right now. Like, oh, I'm gonna be able to do this and have my kids, and then it's like when the kids come, all of that goes out the window.
I hear it, but I think that's antiquated.
Yeah, I was definitely gonna say something into the similar effect, because I've known my whole life that I don't want to have kids, and Danica laughs at me about this all the time. But the reason why I don't want to have kids is because I see it as like this ultimate sacrifice in life that you make, and I think that it's a sacrifice that comes and you don't even realize that you're sacrificing. especially if you're a great mom. It's not something you can anticipate, or you can say that you're not going to give up yourself. But when it comes down to, am I going to give up my time or for myself, or should I give this time to this child? You're always going to choose that child. So at the end of the day, you're always sacrificing everything.
Okay, you gotta come back. All I'm saying is that if I am not the best version of myself because I am unhappy, I'm not going to by default be a great mom, because I do think that people get stuck so much in routines that this is what happens, and they pass that along to their children, and their children can sense that their moms are not happy. So for me, my happiness relies within myself, and so I need to be able to be happy in order to have happy children. That's how I see it.
And I'm just going to add to that, and I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I will say I think that when you don't have that balance, then you are not, what was the word you just used?
Antiquated?
No, there was something else you said. If you don't have the balance, then you're doing yourself a disservice and your child a disservice. Simple as that, and a lot of people don't have the balance. That's just what it is. And, you know, I just feel like you cannot fully pour yourself into your child and neglect yourself as well as your partner, because that's when the hurting comes.
Speak on it. Speak on it.
So why does it happen so often?
I think it just was a societal norm, to be honest. Like, if you look back ages and ages before we ever came up as millennial women, that was the standard, that the woman stays inside the house and gives up her entire life for her family. Women were supposed to be with families. So I think that that's the reason why that became a standard. But I do think that now that women are in the workforce, we're changing the way things are seen. We're understanding self-care, mental health, etc. We don't accept that anymore as a normal and a standard, and I ain't doing it.
Oh, that's what I wanted to say. You're mentally unhealthy if you don't have that balance. That's what I wanted to say.
You wanted to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I understand where you guys are coming from. What I'm saying is, when you're in that position, you're going to sacrifice a lot that you never expected that you would sacrifice. So, like, for me, I know that it comes with a lot of sacrifice, and I ain't trying to sacrifice nothing, so I'm not doing it. That's it.
So it's a decision that we should not take lightly.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a decision that we should not take lightly, and it shouldn't be something that we're expected to do as women because we are women. It's something that we have to choose to do because we are ready to be in that space where we're sacrificing our entire selves for a child.
I don't know about entire self.
What's
I
some of
still
your-
know what I said.
I just want to add something real quick, and then we're going to move on. So I heard from people who are already mothers, you'll never be ready.
Okay. Well, it's going to have to happen if my kid's going to get half.
Okay, so part 3 of the book is called The Breaking, and this would have to be, this I think is like my favorite section. Here she talks about a relationship with the male, and she says, the problem was that you were so enough that he was not able to carry it. And then she talks about selfish people, and that selfish people, even when they know they will hurt you, they still walk into your life to taste you. So, you're going, over there. You want to add something?
So last year, before I went into my 3rd decade on this earth, I did a lot of cutting of people, and it was for all of those reasons. So before I even read her book, I started to realize that there were people, bloodsuckers, leeches, whatever it is that you want to call them, that were in my life that served absolutely no purpose. Like, literally weren't reciprocal friends, lovers, etc. And I had to make a decision to choose me, because it's true. Like, I was allowing certain people, including family, to walk into my life continually and do the exact same action to me all the time, and I would forgive. I'm not a person who holds grudges. I'm not good at it. And so people used to use that against me and walk all over me to a certain extent, because I don't really think that that's like a thing for me either. But they used to come back into my life and repeat the actions, and I would always be surprised, like, oh my God, you didn't change yet? So I think it's important that people actually read that section, absorb the messages that she's saying, and realize that you have to at some point stop, because it's a two-way street. Like, you can't allow people to do that to you. People shouldn't want to, but they're going to. But at some point, you have to stop that other way of the street and block them, because not everybody deserves your time and your energy, and that's just how I see it now. So, anybody else?
Why are you laughing? Because you already know how I feel about this. I think that people who make selfish decisions like that, shame on you. I'm talking to you. Shame on you for selfishly walking into my life when you know damn well that you don't want to be here. If you don't want to be here long term, how dare you take a part of my life, waste my time? I should charge you for that. Yeah. So, but on a serious note, part of I think growing up and like maturing is recognizing when people are broken and when you have those people who are selfish and steering clear of them, because they do exist and they're very dangerous. And you'll turn around and it's like 6 months later and you've lost 6 months and this person has gained a taste of you and you're on the losing end. So, that part really hit home for me. It's very upsetting, actually. I don't know really what else to say. What do we do with those people? What do we do?
Bye.
Okay, so I know quite a few people like that. I'm going to be very honest. Yeah. But I know people who, so I'm always like, I understand every side to everything. So when you think about like those people, right, you have two types of those people. You have those people who do it with ill intent, and then you have people who do things, but it's not malicious. If a person is selfish, they're not thinking about you. They're only thinking about self. So if they're a person that's thinking about, oh, well, this may hurt you, and they still do it anyway, then that's a messed up person, right? So that's the kind of person, get out of my life. But I do have friends who are selfish people, who their nature is to only think about themselves. And they don't do it with ill intent to you. It's just the way they were brought up. That's just who they are. Like, they only think about self. I mean, at the end of the day, some people are like that. So for myself, I just take it on face value. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, she's doing that because she only thinks about herself. It is what it is.
Selfish friends who only think about themselves, and you still hanging out with them?
Some people are selfish. I mean, there's different types of people.
Nah.
It is what it is.
Nah, yeah, no, I don't need those type of people in my life. Like you said, you have to push them away. Once you recognize it, because the thing is, sometimes we see red flags, and we ignore them. Yes. We see them very early on, and we're like, no, it's just me, I'm bugging, it's in my mind. Oh no, the person's gonna change, both men and women. And so when you ignore those red flags, you create a problem for yourself. So once you see something, I'm like, what is it? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me
15.
No,
crazy.
it's no fool me 15, right?
I'm curious, Bridget, why do you keep the selfish people in your life? What is the other side of that?
So for me, once I see who people are, I treat you accordingly. So if I see that you're a selfish person, then I'm not going to go out of my way to give you every piece of me. I'm not going to go out of my way to always think of you, because I know that you're not going to think of me. It's not going to be reciprocated. So I treat you accordingly.
What is the benefit in that friendship?
So for me, those are people like I turn up with. We've talked about before where you have that turn up friend. You can call that person. You want to go hang out? We can go hang out. We can turn up. But is this a person that I'm going to choose as a confidant? No. Is this a person I'm going to call when I need a shoulder to lean on, who's going to be able to understand? No. But can I call you to go to happy hour and have drinks? Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so like buckets of friendship. Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense, because I will say that I do think that I have buckets, but I don't necessarily have what I call selfish people in my buckets. It's just there's nothing, like I'm not giving you no information. I really don't rely on you for anything, but there are certain people that I think I will call to if I just want to have drinks and a good time, but I don't want to talk about nothing deep or crazy. Yeah. So
I just want to say one last thing on the topic from me. If we have any men out there watching this video, and I know it's not always about men and women, but I really do want to know, why would you go into a lady's life if you don't want to take it there with them? I just want to know your perspective, because if you knowingly step into a woman's life when you know you're not ready for something serious, you don't want to get married right now, you have other plans, why even take that step if you know that there's a possibility that you might hurt that lady? Please leave a comment for us so that we can see your perspective.
One last thing, and I promise I'm going to So my coworkers forced me to watch this thing called Hot Girls Wanted. It's really about the porn industry. It's going to seem totally off subject, but I got a point. So it's really about like the first series or the first movie is about the porn industry and how women get into it, whatever. And then they have a series, and one of them is on online dating. And you see this guy who goes through online dating apps and basically does that, like tricks women into thinking that he likes them so much and then ghosts them. And one of the things that he said was due to the availability of women, sometimes he just wants to have sex. He's 40 years old, like, by the way, and the girls he's dating are like 25. But I think that would be really good for y'all to go watch, just as a reference point to what we mean when we're just like, why would you step into someone's life? Like, there's a young woman at the end who comes back to him after a month of not speaking, and she's so hurt because she's like, we were talking for 3 months. What the hell happened? So just the thought of how much pain she went through, and he was dating a whole other person within that timeline. Oh, okay. So just go watch it.
All right. Hot Girls Wanted? Is that what
It's called Hot Girls Wanted. I forget what the actual series is called, but type in Hot Girls Wanted, they both come up.
Okay, thank you. So we need to move on to section 4 of the book, which is called The Healing, and this is the last section. She talks about falling in love with your solitude and the idea of if pain comes, so will happiness. And so you just have to be patient and go through like the motions of the different emotions that you feel in life. What do we think about falling in love with your solitude and, being alone?
We all know those people who can never be alone, right? They always have to go from relationship to relationship, and they never take time to just stay by themselves and learn who they are. I think that that's a really important step that we have to take, not just as women, but as people, where we're just alone and we figure out who we are, what we want, and what our goals and desires are so that we can choose wisely. I think having your own solitude and being comfortable with that, because sometimes we are not comfortable being alone because we're not comfortable with ourselves. I think that time is just really important. And it took me a long time to get there too. It's not automatic. I would say definitely in my 20s, I became comfortable with just being alone, doing things alone, and loving who I am. So.
Yeah, I would say for me it was the same thing. Like, I think maybe around my late 20s, mid to late 20s, I started really falling in love with who I was as a person. And I think that it provided me so much clarity in terms of what I actually want in a man and what I will accept and what I won't. Because if I see signs that you're not treating me right, I'm leaving. I don't have no problem saying this is not going to work for me and walking right out the door because I love myself. And that self-respect and that self-love is not something I'm willing to sacrifice now because I'm comfortable with being by myself. Not that I don't want someone, but I'm comfortable with being alone.
For me, I love being alone. Last year, I did the whole solo trips, and it was just amazing, like really getting to know who I am as a person. And like you said, if a guy enters, I know what it is that I expect, what it is that I like, and if you can't supply that, if you don't add any value, then you gotta go, right? And so I love being alone. I love people too, but something about being like going to the movies by myself, going out to eat by myself, like I'm good company. I'm my own good company. You want to add something?
Yeah.
I'm always laughing at my own jokes.
No, I definitely agree. At one point, I had to ask myself, why are you always on the phone? Why am I always reaching to call somebody? Even when I'm walking down the street, when I'm going to the store, like, it's okay to be okay with yourself and with your own thoughts. Like, just spend time doing nothing. Walk to the store without being on the phone with somebody. Walk to the store without hearing any music. Listen to your surroundings. Be one with yourself, and that's made a lot of difference in my life.
So, ladies, now it's time to transition to Rate That Book. And this is a segment where we give the book a rating from 1 to 5, and we use one adjective to describe the book. So we must choose wisely. Are we ready?
Yes.
So I'll begin. Relatable.
Phenomenal.
Connected.
Powerful.
Okay. All 5s. I think this might be it first. Yes.
Read it.
Yes. So there you have it, milk and honey in a nutshell. We hope that you all really enjoyed this episode. I think we all did, based on the conversation. Make sure you tune into part 2 of the Book Babe Summer Special. We'll be discussing She Must Be Mad by Charlie Cox.
And make sure you like, comment, subscribe if you have any questions or things you want to add about selfish people or different things in your life. And make sure you follow us at Book Babes Read on Instagram, Facebook, and also on YouTube.
That's it, ladies. All right. Bye.
Please know the clock will tick. So while you get lit, focus on your grind. You'll reach your prime. When it's your time, will you remember? Remember, you shine. Two separate styles fight the mesh within the anguish. Misunderstood, unable to speak each other's language. Where the symmetries align, I have hopes been crushed. Loyalty, while our eyes wide shut on some Stanley Kubrick. Life's a puzzle like a rubrics in which you begat these other notes flat. Sing your soul and memory.